Dun 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 dun. It is Monday night. We're
Monday.
usually here on Tuesday night, but it is now Monday night.
Woo-hoo.
Fantasy football with the buzz. With me, as always, is Cyclop and 2020. 2020 looks like you're just finishing dinner. It looks good. How are you, what were you having?
I was having Monday Night Football barbecue chicken, man.
Wow, very nice. Skin on or skin off?
Wow.
It was skin on. No other way to do it.
All right, uncircumcised. Brad, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, feeling good. Just a couple of weeks from training camp. Things are starting to get active and have some fun.
That's great. Yeah, and tonight, by the way, is wide receiver night. So I thought I'd represent with Jalen Waddle, and we'll get into the top wide receivers that we think you should draft. We were doing top 15, but for wide receivers, because leagues have so many spots for receivers and there are so many receivers out there, we went ahead and we did our top 20 receivers. We're going to talk about that tonight. We're going to, of course, have the Kenneth question of the night. If he calls in with a question, we'll ask that. And also, we're going to have a special segment that Cyclop is going to bring tonight called You're My Number One?
You're my fantasy number one.
You're my fantasy number one. It sounds like it may or may not be appropriate for the show. And just on cue, Kenneth is calling, our number one fantasy fan here at the Buzz. Kenneth, how are you doing tonight?
Kenneth, what's up?
My question of the night just happens to be this: who do you see as being challengers for both the Chiefs and the Bucks heading into this season?
Oh, I see what you're asking. Okay.
Every other team.
So you're saying, are we going to have a repeat, or are we going to see new teams come up and be in the Super Bowl this coming year, and who those teams might be, right?
Yeah, that's a good question.
Well, that's a great question. But before we get to that, Kenneth, I have a question for you, actually. Okay, as we're getting close to going to training camp, I know things in Houston, your team, you're a Texans fan, are a little questionable right now. And it looks like Tyrod Taylor is going to be the guy behind center. Are we looking at a situation where Brandon Cooks, Kiki Cutie, or Nico Collins, are any of those going to be hurt dramatically or drastically as a result of the fact that Deshaun Watson isn't behind center?
It's possible, but I cannot give you a definitive answer to that in my honest opinion. But it is possible.
All right. So since it's not the Seth question of the night, it's the Kenneth question of the night. Who are the challengers for the Chiefs and the Broncos? Brad, go.
Sorry. I was just pushing something out to Facebook. I'm sorry.
You go ahead. I'll start in. So we're going to do that by division. If we're talking about the Chiefs from the AFC, to me, it's obvious to me that it would be the Buffalo Bills. I don't think they got any weaker. As a matter of fact, they might have got a little stronger. I thought that they were a good challenger for them last year. They just, were just a step behind them. KC's had that offense and that team together. Their defense got a little better. So, but I think Buffalo's defense got a little better. They have another year with Stephon Diggs there. They added another piece to the puzzle as well with Emmanuel Sanders. So that's going to be an exciting team. And I think
Josh Allen came out of nowhere, right? Like no one anticipated.
No.
Very few people anticipated. He came out of nowhere. So the big question is,
can he
repeat? Are we going to see a regression of Josh Allen? Are we going to see the same Josh Allen? Are we going to see an even better Josh Allen?
I don't see why he would regress. He's got they run a great offense there that hasn't changed. He has another year there. He still has Stephon Diggs, who's an absolute beast. They added another piece in Emmanuel Sanders. So I don't see any reason why they regress. I don't see why they wouldn't take the next step. The problem is, it was like Jordan with the Bulls. as good as your team could get, can you get by them? And that's what KC is. But I think if there was one challenger, one legitimate challenger in the AFC, it's Buffalo. There's one other team that I would put, and I don't think you're gonna believe I'm gonna say this, but I honestly think
I'm wondering if it's the same team
Cleveland.
I'm thinking about.
I'm thinking,
Cleveland.
believe it or not, the Cleveland Browns. It's a very good defense. If Baker Mayfield continues on the track that he was on before with the healthy OBJ, Higgins, Jarvis Landry, that's a team that everyone's thinking Pittsburgh, Tennessee. I honestly think Cleveland could take a big step in a very, very positive direction.
You know, you're so funny because you're talking about Cleveland doing well, which I don't disagree with. But you were naming the fact that they've got OBJ, they've got Landry, but really, and we can talk about this when we start talking about receivers, that offense is a run-first offense, right?
It's Chubb and Hunt.
I mean, it is Chubb and Hunt that really are going to make that offense. That's why I'm not saying you're wrong. I just thought it was interesting that you brought
what
up
I was pegging.
all of the receivers. Okay,
I guess I just meant because OBJ wasn't even a part of it last year. They're getting a healthy him back to go with what they already have. I can see a major step forward for them in a much.
So you're looking at the Browns. I'm looking at Tennessee. That's Bills,
what I was going to go with. Yeah.
You know, so I think those four, even though it was similar to last year, and it's so funny because we sit here and we do this year after year after year where we look at the teams from last year and we kind of say, well, they didn't get any worse, so they've got to be coming back. Yet there's always somebody, there's always a team that's going to pop out of nowhere to be that team.
I'll tell you. So I have two teams that I think, besides the obvious ones that you just stated, I think Buffalo and Tennessee are, I think, the main competition for KC right now. There's two teams that I think have very interesting schedules, and I think that have a lot of opportunity. It is San Diego, and well, I guess it's Los Angeles now, right?
I was saying, but they don't only have a team to do that.
Los Angeles, right? They're very good, and oddly enough, Indy. I think Indy. I know. I think they've got an opportunity. Yeah, that's
a head scratcher. That's like when Seth was talking about kickers. That's a head scratcher to me.
Leave kickers alone.
To me, I think Indy's defense would have to really step up and be something special. I agree that offense is going to be much better. Not much better. It's going to be better. But it's that defense I'm concerned about with Indy. What about in the NFC, guys?
You know, that's a big question mark. That is a huge, monstrous, does Aaron Rodgers play? And if Aaron Rodgers plays, I mean, to me, if you ask me, it would be Green Bay as the budding force to come up against Tampa Bay. To me, that would be obvious. I also think, believe it or not, I like to see how their defense starts performing a little bit better, but I really, really like Minnesota. That is an incredible offense. And if that defense starts gelling, watch out for Minnesota because I think they are a team to be reckoned with.
All right. And obviously this isn't fantasy related. We have some questions coming in about other things today. But my team with that question are the Rams. So I'm going with both LA teams. I think the addition of Stafford makes that team a higher notch team.
It's true.
I agree.
Definitely.
I could definitely see the Rams. You know, I'm questioning whether the Bucs even return to the playoffs. Not to the play. I mean, they'll probably make the playoffs. I'm questioning whether or not they'll even go far enough to get even to the championship game, let alone the Super Bowl.
Fortunately, you can just never count out Tom Brady. God, I hate that guy.
So we do have a question that's off topic, and I didn't see it. I've been kind of busy all day, but there were some comments. I did hear that something happened today, but there were some comments that Stephen A. Smith made today. Did you guys hear about this? Because I haven't yet, just being honest, but I know it was very controversial.
Actually, I was in a vacuum all day working, so I did not hear that today.
Well, you know, the question really is, do we want to get into a baseball topic? I mean, this isn't really our thing. I think I really don't want to get into it right now with Shohei, and actually, I wish I was watching the Home Run Derby right now with him. And Stephen A. I feel like a lot of times he says things just to rile things.
Drama. Yeah. He's a drama king.
He's a drama king, and so he in a sense insulted the Asian community by putting down Shohei. As far as I'm concerned, this is baseball. This is Stephen A. Smith. I don't even think we need to get into it. But the truth of the matter is he apologized, which isn't something that he does often, for the comments that he made, or I should say the insensitive comments that he made. So, I appreciate you asking that in the comments, but, let's move on.
I think we covered it. Good job, Kamish. We've covered it. Move on. I agree.
Let's stick with the football.
All right, Kenneth. I agree.
Attaboy.
And before I go, I want to give my condolences to everyone affected by the passing of former Broncos offensive line coach Alex Gibbs.
Yeah.
I don't know if y'all heard, but he had passed away, I believe it was today, at the age of 80.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I appreciate the question of the night, Kenneth.
Mm-hmm.
And
good question.
Looking forward to your question next week. In the meantime, if anybody has any questions or comments, give us a call, 772-800-BUZZ or 2899. Or you can always ask your questions in the comments in Facebook Live or YouTube Live. Hopefully it'll be football-related questions, and we will get right to them live on the air. And again, it's wide receiver night, guys. So I want to know what everyone else's top 20 wide receivers looks like, or we're about to show the top 20 receivers that I have. Again, they're not necessarily the views of Cycloper 2020, but we're going to put them up in a second. But before we do, we forgot to introduce the Loop man himself, Belt Loops, our producer. Josh, how are you doing tonight?
Doing well, guys. Glad to be back.
All right. You've been
Loops.
You've been on your world tour.
I've been all over the place lately.
All right.
Did you get people coming up to you saying, "I know you"?
You're Belt Loops.
Yeah, you're from the Buzz podcast. Oh, we just lost 20.
That's okay.
2020.
I'm just kidding.
Yeah, we're good. Yeah. Luckily, it's wide receiver. Oh, he's back. Luckily, it's wide receiver night. But Loops, anytime you got something you want to add, just go ahead and jump on in.
I got you. Thank you.
All right. Okay. So like I said, it is wide receiver night. We're very excited because we want to know, I'm excited because I want to know what you guys think of my list. And I'm also curious what everyone else thinks of the list. Let me just go ahead and throw it up there. So these are my top, let me get rid of this banner here. Okay. So these are my top 20 wide receivers. Let me grab Kenneth real quick. Hey, Kenneth.
Hey, I'd like to offer a segment of my own ahead of next week. So if y'all can y'all save the tight end for me?
All right,
I'd like to produce my own segment for that.
All right, so let's give. We'll talk to you during the week about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
All right, man.
Thanks,
Take care.
Kenneth.
Okay, so back to wide receivers. These are my top 20 wide receivers. And the question, we don't have to necessarily go down the list to each and every one of them. After looking at this list, if there's one thing that I think I may have messed up on is putting A.J. Brown as high as I did. But I think everything else I'm pretty happy about. Obviously, Tyreek Hill, Devontae Adams, the big question will be if it's not Rodgers, if it's Jordan Love behind center, is Devontae still that high up? Diggs, if there's no regression by Josh Allen, there's no reason why he shouldn't be up there. Same with Hopkins. Ridley without Julio is just going to be a monster. Jefferson and Michael Thomas, I might switch those positions, maybe put Michael Thomas above Justin Jefferson. DK, Keenan Allen, Scary Terry, then Allen Robinson. Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb could be 13, 14, 14, 13. I think they're pretty close. Mike Evans, then Julio Jones in Tennessee, Chris Godwin, DJ Moore, Robert Woods, and Deontay.
I gotta say there's one glaring miss on this, and it is a big one. Most of it, I agree with a lot of this, but you have a guy that last year had 100 receptions, 1,000 yards, and 10 touchdowns, and he is not on here, and he needs to be on here, and he's the 1A to DK Metcalf's 1B, and that's Tyler Lockett. This guy is pretty much now a perennial top 20 guy. I certainly have him over DJ Moore, maybe Deontay Johnson. Because you got 3 mouths to feed there in Pittsburgh. Kind of hard to ignore a 100 catch, 1,000-yard, 10 touchdown guy in the top 20. That's my opinion only. But to me, if there's one miss, I think that would be it. I'd probably have him over DJ Moore.
Yeah,
I actually have Tyler Lockett as 21. After Deontay Johnson, I have Tyler Lockett and then Jamar Chase. I'm sorry, not Jamar Chase. I have Cooper Kupp at that point.
Right.
So I don't disagree that Lockett shouldn't be up there. I just have him as a little further down at wide receiver 21.
He's 28.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. I don't have a problem with that. So whether it's that glaring to me is if he was supposed to be in the top 10 and I don't have him on there. But I get where you're coming from. You're also a Lockett guy, if I remember correctly.
I mean, to me, he was like the 11th receiver last year, and him and Metcalf are. I mean, you could argue who had the better season. Metcalf had 300 more yards, but Lockett had more equal touchdowns and more receptions. So I mean, they're like a 1A and a half almost.
Yeah, I could see that.
I see wide receiver this year, fantasy wise, as a very, very deep year.
Very deep.
I don't recall it being like 6 of the first 20 you have here are from 3 teams.
Yeah.
A third of the list is from 3 teams, which is pretty amazing. Yeah. Unless I missed one, but that's what I counted. And, I don't see anything super glaring. The top 3 receivers, honestly, I think could be interchanged. You have a guy like Stephon Diggs, who his worst week was 6 receptions. Now, he had some weeks with very low yards, but he started picking up more touchdowns. Tyreek Hill had 3 catches for 130 and 2 touchdowns sometimes. But right. Diggs was very consistent, getting 8, 10, 12 catches a week. And who doesn't want a guy like that, especially in a PPR league? Adams with Rodgers, obviously, that can change around. Michael Thomas, does he move above Ridley without Breeze there? Yeah, he's probably in the right place, and he could end up being number 1 or number 25 this year. We don't know.
I mean, if he's healthy, and that's a big if, because if you remember at the end of last year, right, you had him. But at the end of last year, it was reported that he needed surgery. He was going to get surgery, and then he would come back. And he never had surgery, as far as I know. And I'm not a doctor, but as far as I know, he never had his off-season surgery. So I guess he wanted it to heal without the surgery. So does that mean he's more of a risk to re-aggravate his injury? I'm more concerned about that than I am about the question of who's going to be the quarterback in New Orleans, because even with Hill, Michael Thomas was
getting 8 to 10 catches a week.
Played. Correct. Right. So I'm fine with whatever quarterback.
We have a comment from Howard here who said Lockett is so hit and miss. He's not consistent from game to game, which is true. And DK Metcalf ended up being the same at certain points of the season.
But that's exactly right, because and that's just a matter of Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is phenomenal at just exposing a defense's weakness, and he'll lock in on that receiver. Still, DK, he still had more catches than Metcalf, same amount of touchdowns, just a little less yards. Guy grabbed 100 balls for 1,000 yards and 10 scores.
No, I agree, but
all day long from your wide receiver 1.
At number 20, you're going to take that. But really what you want, again, is a consistency. And as he points out here, Lockett had a 200-yard game. And then it took him another 4 to 5 weeks to get 200 yards. So yeah, it's a very up and down game. And when you're looking at week to week, you really want, especially if you're in a head-to-head.
Brown was
you
the
really want
same
the
way.
consistency.
AJ Brown was the same way. He
I
would
agree.
Totally disappear for games.
I actually have
This is
AJ
what
Brown
happens.
lower. I've written here. I have some people to move up and down, and I actually have AJ Brown to go lower, especially because Julio's there.
Yeah, I don't even have Julio in my top 20. Just because, not because of, I don't think his play has declined that much, but he's in an offense that is probably the run first of all run first with a really good defense. They got rid of Corey Davis and Humphreys, and so now they're down to AJ Brown and Julio really as the two main targets there, and they got rid of Jonah with the other tight end. I just don't see a lot of balls to go around. I tell you, I honestly, here's a bold prediction: Robbie Anderson has a better year than Julio Jones. I actually think Robbie Anderson has a better year than DJ Moore because of his connection with Sam Darnold, and he did really good last year. So I would have him probably in the top 20 role here. But I'm not.
I just wait for that guy to get broken in half every time he's running down the field when he gets
Robbie Anderson.
He just looks like he's gonna.
But he does it every year. He does it every year.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was also looking at ADP because in creating the list, we have to look at where you think he might go or where has he gone in previous drafts up to date. And right now, believe it or not, AJ Brown has an ADP of 24, meaning
24.
end of third round.
Ninth receiver off the board, right? Yeah.
Right. So yeah, he's going high. Is it very possible that he's going to be a bust that high? Sure. But it's also hard to deny that he shouldn't be up there. He does have the skills. Whether or not there's enough balls that go around, if it's going to be, I agree, because it's not like Henry isn't going to carry the ball 30 times a game.
Right.
So, I'm banking on it. My position there is banking on the fact that Julio still isn't going to be healthy for a whole year. And if that's the case, it has to be AJ Brown because there's nobody else.
Right. But here's a fun little thing. I'll ask both of you: AJ Brown or Keenan Allen? Pick one.
Keenan Allen, and I know that
Keenan Allen.
I have AJ Brown. But here's the thing. Let me break this down with Keenan Allen real quick. And I had Keenan Allen last year. Love the guy. I would take him every year. He balls every single week.
Right.
But there's an X factor now in San Diego. I'm sorry, in LA. Sorry about that. I know I'm a year out. And that X factor's name is Joe Lombardi. So Joe Lombardi is the offensive coordinator now for the Chargers. And he came over from New Orleans, right? So this is the guy who created this Drew Brees, Michael Thomas system. And now we're going to see this with the Chargers. And I understand that Keenan Allen is a slot receiver for the most part, right? And so are we looking at maybe Mike Williams now stepping up in that position, not to be Michael Thomas? I'm not going crazy here saying Mike Williams is Michael Thomas, but that offense is going to be scary. And with Joe Lombardi there, it can only get better. I think Eckler can only get better. I think Keenan Allen is going to get better. And I think Mike Williams is going to be a nice surprise for everybody. Now, maybe I'm putting too much weight on Joe Lombardi. As a Dolphin fan, I remember we were praying for Joe Lombardi after we needed, when we decided we needed to have an offensive coordinator after Chan Gailey either left or got fired or who knows what happened to him. He's no longer here. Dolphin fans were saying, go get Lombardi. We didn't get him. The Chargers got him. So, yeah, Keenan Allen, to answer your question, for sure. No doubt about it.
I would even ask you A.J. Brown or Scary Terry. I would still take Scary Terry there, especially with Fitzpatrick in the fold.
I think the consistency of A.J. Brown is just in question. That's where I would move one up and one down.
Right.
And that's A.J. Brown hasn't had the consistent games of, sometimes they'll have 2 for 60 and other games they'll have 10 for,
Or
130,
180 and 3 touchdowns.
whatever it is. Right.
Exactly.
Right.
I have him in a keeper league, so I've experienced it. He'll blow up, and then he will just flat out disappear for games at a time. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
What about Amari Cooper and CeeDee Lamb?
love them both. Love them both.
I mean, they both did well, right? Before
Mhm.
Dak Prescott got hurt. It's just that CeeDee Lamb has more of a hype train going than with Amari Cooper, mainly because of Amari Cooper's first years with the Raiders,
Right.
where he
he's
underperformed.
But he established such an immediate connection with Dak, and with Dak under center, that is a 1A, 1A. It really is. CeeDee Lamb is a talent. You can't ignore how well Cooper plays with Dak under center. The defense got a little better. I still think they're going to have to put up 30 points a game to stay in games, and that is a passing offense. I love them both.
I think that defense actually got a lot better later in the season. Who did they someone came off of suspension? Is that right? At some point, and someone else came back. They or maybe it was an injury, but they got quite a bit better later in the season. Both of those guys kind of scare me a little bit in that position, because I think one is going to break out and one's just going to stay average.
I think what scares me right now is the fact that the word out of Dallas is that Amari Cooper is having ankle issues. He's going to miss the beginning of training camp as a result. Obviously, if he's not healthy, then it's going to be CeeDee Lamb.
Big bump for
if Amari Cooper is healthy, knowing that even with some of the worst quarterback play in NFL history that they had in Dallas after Dak Prescott got hurt, Cooper still finished as wide receiver 15 in a PPR league,
right?
Even with those terrible quarterbacks. So I'm liking Amari Cooper this year, especially if Dak comes back healthy. But keep an eye on that ankle issue. The other question, talking about the two receivers from the same team, Evans and Godwin, where do you guys feel about those two guys?
Oh man, it's so infuriating sometimes having these options. Yeah. It's almost right. It's what's Brady going to be again like this year? And we've been saying it for 10 years. And what does he do? He comes out and he still gets these guys the ball in positions to make big plays. And then it's like, again, last year it was like one was doing good, the other was doing good. Godwin was hurt, Evans was hurt. So it was like on and off all year. And then they kind of came on at the end of the year and they both were performing. So if I remember correctly. So it's like, I think between those two, I think, who do you have a feeling on for next year? They're both incredibly talented receivers.
Evans is here's what's interesting. Touchdown guy, right? Evans is the touchdown.
Evans is. But Brady has always favored the slot guy, and that's what Godwin is. So actually going into last season, when looking between Godwin and Evans, I was much bigger on Godwin because he always made the Wes Welkers and the Julian Edelmans excel. Evans is your X, right? Godwin was your Z. And when they were both on the field and healthy, something, Evans was consistently outproducing him. Not even with just the touchdowns. He was getting more targets. Godwin took a step back last year. I'm not even talking about the injury. I'm talking about when he was on the field, because Antonio Brown was taking away targets as well. Godwin was a big disappointment last year. So it's interesting, because you would think, based on Brady's dynamic, the way he loves to throw the ball, that West Coast style offense, you'd think it'd be Godwin. Last year, it did not show that. And it's another interesting scenario in Pittsburgh, where you have Deontay Johnson there. But my God, if you look at what Juju Smith-Schuster did last year, which everyone thought was a down year, the guy grabbed 97 balls with 9 touchdowns, didn't break 1,000 yards. He was their short guy. That's in a PPR league. 97 and 9 touchdowns, you're going to take that all day, even though he didn't even crack 900 yards. He had only 831 yards. So that's another one. You got Claypool there, who
Yep.
came also 9 touchdowns. Deontay Johnson as well, another stud, 88 grabs, 7 touchdowns. Also didn't break. So that's a muddy. I see you have Deontay there.
Yeah.
Which is curious because Juju actually had a better year, both yardage, catches, and touchdowns over Deontay, even though it seemed like it was a down year for him.
Oh, I think injuries also came into that, and the fact that there were a few times that Deontay was benched because of drops. I'm not worried about the drops. I mean, the guy was averaging 12 targets. He's a lot of times you don't want to overanalyze this, but 12 targets a game on an average is crazy.
That's a lot.
He's getting 18 points per game in a PPR league. I don't know. Look, as far as I'm concerned, I would still take Deontay Johnson over Claypool or Juju, but I don't know. You know,
you're true. He had 100.
Juju just got his contract.
Yeah.
And we've seen what happens to receivers the year after
they get their contract. Yeah,
right.
And again, let me make it clear: we're looking at the 20th ranked wide receiver, and so at that point, you have a lot of other people. You know, whether it's Lockett, whether it's Cooper Kupp, whether it's Adam Thielen. I mean, there's plenty of people there.
If you don't have a good feeling about him, you can go to someone else.
Yeah. I think Juju is actually going to do worse this coming year than he did last year.
I think Claypool might be a really good surprise this year. I had him last year. I picked him up, and it got a little frustrating. But there was so many times during games where he was targeted a lot, and they just were missing on connections with Roethlisberger and him. They were just missing. And if they can figure that out, just a little bit of timing, that guy's going to be a beast.
Yeah. The only thing is there's just how many targets do you have? I mean, Juju Smith had 144 targets. Deontay Johnson Deontay had $144. Juju had quite a few as well. I'm trying to find it here.
120 about, I think.
Yeah, 128, and Claypool came in at $109. But not only that, you don't want to totally overthink it, but they just drafted Najee. And, if Tomlin has his way, he doesn't want to have to throw the ball 35, 40 times a game. Again, with that offensive line, might not have a choice because that's not a very good run blocking offensive line. That's a lot of mouths.
And their defense isn't very good.
Pittsburgh's defense?
Yeah.
Pittsburgh's defense last year started picking it up towards the end.
All right, so listen. I don't want to be Pittsburgh centric here, but
actually, I wanted to ask you a question, Commish.
Yeah.
This is a really interesting. To me, the biggest wild card on this sheet, with the exception of Devontae, because we don't know if Aaron Rodgers is going to play, is Allen Robinson. Because Allen Robinson, to me, is just an absolute baller. He is a stud of all studs, but the question is, can he continue? And he just does it every year. He just quietly is always one of the top receivers.
With terrible quarterback play.
With terrible quarterback. But now yet another quarterback. Is it going to be Dalton? Is it going to be Justin Fields? Last year, the guy put up a $102, 1,250 yards, only 6 touchdowns. But he is the best contested pass catcher in the game, or contesting pass catcher. The question is, can he do it with yet another quarterback possibly coming into the fold in Fields? To me, this is the biggest wild card in the game right here. You think so?
Yeah, and that's a good question. Who on this list, I want to know who has the highest ceiling, who's got the lowest floor. So who's the guy that has the biggest chance of underperforming? Is it Adams because of the quarterback issue? I don't think so. Is it A.J. Brown because of the Julio Jones issue? That's a possibility. Is it DJ Moore because they have Sam Darnold as the quarterback?
Right. Or is it Michael Thomas because people always have that big expectation on him, and that could be Taysom Hill, even though he did do decent with Hill, or it could be Jameis Winston. So good question there as well.
So give us a call if you would like to answer that question. Who has the highest ceiling? Who's got the lowest floor? Give us a call, 772-800-BUZZ, or you can always comment on Facebook Live or YouTube Live. And we're curious as to not just that, but also who are your top receivers? What is wrong with my list? What is right with my list? Howard has said Michael Thomas as far as having the lowest floor possibly, or being the one that might underachieve. It's possible, but you know what? At the same time, Michael Thomas could be the top receiver, right? I mean, he could be at either end of this list, which makes it even more intriguing. To me, it's based on health. If Michael Thomas is healthy, he's going to be a top 5 receiver. That's my opinion on it.
You know what's interesting? When you get down to like 7 to 10 in receiver, you're talking about potentially the 3rd round. I guess, yeah.
Well, I'm glad you brought that.
Mid-second round, where you're taking a guy like Michael Thomas, and at that point, not 2nd round, 3rd round. Yeah, you're talking about 3rd round, and at that point, you're taking Michael Thomas if he's there. Absolutely.
That's correct. In fact, I only have on my list, only Tyreek Hill to me is 1st round worthy. After that, I have Devontae Adams, Stephon Diggs, and DeAndre Hopkins as 2nd round worthy, and then Ridley, Brown, Jefferson, Metcalf, Allen, Thomas, all 3rd round, and we go from there. And I think a lot of that has to do with depth, right, guys? I mean, how many good receivers that there are in the league, and there are leagues that require 3 starting wide receivers. There are leagues that have 2, but they have a flex, and most people are going to grab that wide receiver as their flex. So it keeps things very interesting.
So I have a question.
Go ahead, Cyclops.
So my question is, with the 17-game season now, or 17-game season, does that affect wide receivers at all, or should it not? I know we talked about running backs last week. Shouldn't really affect quarterbacks. We get that, but will that affect wide receivers as far as them maybe not taking as many snaps per week?
You know what? It's going to affect absolutely, with the exception of punters, it's going to affect everyone on the team. With an extra game,
even
everyone but Young Koo, because he's a special boy. He's a special boy.
Swear to God, if you draft him.
I might go 5th round on him. Of course, it's going to impact them. Are coaches going to start changing the amount of plays? I mean, I don't think so. They want to win. It's one extra game. I think what you might start seeing, I think you're going to see a little different things happening in the preseason. I know it's really only that 3rd game when they put him in for a full half. So, you could adjust for the games, the amount of games, by adjusting practices and preseason games and equal out body wear and tear by doing it that way. I don't see that much of an adjustment for the one extra game. I just don't see it. I have an interesting question. In your mind, who is this year's Stephon Diggs? And what I mean by that, Diggs was always a good receiver. He was always, top 5, 7, 10, maybe when he was in Minnesota. Out of nowhere, and by the way, this doesn't have to be someone that's on a new team. Out of nowhere, he became arguably the best receiver from a fantasy standpoint in football with Tyreek Hill. So who are you saying? Who is, in your opinion, this year's Stephon Diggs? It could be one of these top 10. It probably would be a top 10, 15. But that out of nowhere receiver that can come out of the blue and be number 1 or number 2.
I got mine.
Go ahead. I've had mine as well. I'm curious who yours is.
Mine is Robert Woods.
Interesting.
I think with Stafford, I think Robert Woods is going to become the Kenny Galladay for the Rams. I think that, yes, Kupp is going to be your possession guy. I think Robert Woods is going to be that guy who's going to be getting a lot of those 10-yard passes with the yak after that and just building up those fantasy points.
You know what? I love Chubb. You love Woods. That's just how it is. Okay, go ahead, Cyclops.
Well,
of course, my son walked in the room
on wide
said,
receiver
get
day.
Out of here, kid. Yeah, right. On wide receiver day, right?
Anyway, so I'm going to go with a guy that you guys are going to be like, huh? But that's okay. And I've just been hearing a lot about him, and it's Brandon Ayuk.
Oh God!
In San Francisco.
Interesting. Again, we're talking about someone that's going to be like Stephon Diggs, possibly the number 1, number 2 fantasy receiver this year. That's
number
what we're
one
saying.
fantasy. Okay.
Who's throwing to him? Brad?
No.
Right, that's what I'm
Doesn't
saying.
matter.
When I'm talking about,
Okay.
Diggs,
So let
Diggs
me
came out of the blue to be the top guy. Who's that guy? That's not Ayuk. I love Ayuk, but that's not Ayuk.
Okay.
I mean, look at the list I have, right?
I'll answer it.
Yeah.
While Cyclops is thinking, I'm going to answer it while he's thinking. And for me, it's Calvin Ridley. I mean, and this is a guy, he's a great receiver. He's top 5, 6,
Not
whatever.
much of a stretch there.
I'll give Thomas, Diggs, Hill, you got DeAndre, Jefferson, all those guys are out there. So it's not a huge stretch, but I'm talking about this guy should be the number 1 receiver in football. With Julio gone, the amount that they're going to throw, Matt Ryan loves to really – it's him and Russell Gage, and yes, of course, Kyle Pitts. I see him coming in. But Stephon Diggs wasn't a stretch. This was always a top 10 receiver. No one thought he'd be number 1. I don't think anyone's
because nobody anticipated Josh Allen to be the Josh Allen.
To be that good. Right.
And nobody knew what Diggs would do on a new team. Nobody knew that they would have that connection. So, and that's why I'm looking at Robert Woods, because even though he's not on the new team, the quarterback is, and the quarterback play could really change everything.
Absolutely. But again, this is just someone who you could say it's. I don't want to say it's entirely obvious that Ridley can be number 1. Look, he still has to beat Hill. He's got to beat Diggs. He's got to beat DeAndre. All these other guys. I just think with Julio gone and the way they throw the ball in Atlanta, Ridley could do something really special this year.
We want to know right now, for everyone who's listening out there, who this year Stephon Diggs is. 772-800-BUZZ or 2899, or go ahead and put your comment in Facebook Live or YouTube Live. We will pull it up and put it on the air right away. So who is this year Stephon Diggs? Cyclops, besides Brandon Ayuk, is there anybody else that you're seeing here?
So Howard says Metcalf.
All right, and that's always a possibility if Lockett gets hurt. But that's always a possibility.
I just don't see it.
All right, so I'm gonna go. I've been high on a lot of things, but I've been high on
a lot of things.
No, that's not true. No, I really like the Rams this year, and I've talked about that. And Robert Woods is, I had him last year, so I got to watch him a lot, and the guy was just a beast. And I think that again with Stafford there, he's gonna definitely be on the rise. Justin Jefferson, he's not coming out of the blue, but certainly could end up the number 1 or 2 receiver this year easily.
He is a stud. He is an absolute stud. Yeah.
And Kenneth agrees with me.
Well, there you have it.
It's written in stone.
All right. So, guys, I really appreciate. There's nothing better than wide receiver night. Okay, maybe next week. Who knows if it's going to be tight end night? But I'm waiting for kicker night.
We know. We weren't even going to do a kicker night, but now we have to.
We might just let you take that show by yourself and just have a fun with it and run with it. You can just kick us to the side.
A little pun there. All right. So what we do, and by the way, we will continue to take people's calls and put their comments up. 772-800-BUZZ. You want to talk about wide receivers? You want to talk about anything fantasy? You have any question at all about any position, including kicker? Give us a call or comment in Facebook Live or YouTube Live. But we always like to end the show on a different segment, a segment that's a little more fun and makes a little more thought. And of course, it's opened up to our entire audience to make their comments and to answer. And tonight, it's Brad's turn, our Cyclops' turn, to ask those questions. And you have named this segment, You're My Fantasy Number 1. That's sweet.
It really kind of sounds like a greeting card. Seriously.
It does.
It's a Hallmark moment.
So what this is I went back to 2015 and I picked each position, 2015, 16, 17, etc. And it was the number 1 fantasy player at this position that year. And I'm going to give you some stats.
Okay.
And then I'm going to see if you can come up with the player. Okay.
Oh boy.
So,
Interesting.
okay.
Really.
So 2015, we're going to start with QB. All right.
6 years ago.
Yeah.
Six years ago. That's correct. This QB had 455 fantasy points. Now, keep in mind, I did this off ESPN Standard League. Okay. Fantasy points. I had to pick something. He had 50 more points than the next closest QB that year. So he had a monster year. I'll give you his stats. He was 296 of 495 passing for 3,837 yards. He had 35 passing touchdowns. Now, this might give it away. He had 636 rushing yards and 10 rushing touchdowns.
I know who it is.
Yeah, I know who it is.
I think you both do.
Michael
I would have
Vick.
guessed somebody different had the yardage not been
So, yeah.
3,800.
Correct.
But as
I
soon
knew that
as
would
you
give it
said
away.
3,800 yards.
Yes.
I knew that the points had to come from running touchdowns,
Correct.
Right.
Yes.
which really leaves you with only one quarterback in 2016.
2015.
You want to go?
Yeah.
Oh, I
Yeah.
was thinking 2016, but I'm going to still say
2015.
Cam Newton.
Oh, that's right. Cam Newton.
Oh,
Right.
what
Yeah,
were you going with? See, we got
I was
Vic,
trying.
right?
I was trying to go back. Was it Vic or was it RG3? But it was that year Vic was with Philly, and he absolutely lit it up. And I think that was years
Not in
before that.
2015. Vic
Not in
hadn't been in the
2015.
league in a long
No,
Not
it.
2015.
You're right. No. You're right. It had to be. It had to be Cam Newton. It
All right,
wasn't
so
RG3.
we have Kenneth going with Vic, Howard going with RG3, right? So they're on that wavelength. But Kamish is correct. It is Cam Newton.
Cam
He
Newton
is still
yeah.
playing for your New England Patriots. Thankfully,
No,
time. Not my New England Patriots.
Yeah.
Okay, so there was one. Okay, we're going to move to 2016, and it is wide receiver. This is going to be a tough one.
That's going to be a lot harder.
It's going to be a lot harder, wide receiver. Okay, he had 97 catches this year, 1,257 yards. He had 14 touchdowns. Okay, now
Not a
with
lot.
different scoring systems, I'll give you the people it's not. Mike Evans and Antonio Brown were within just a couple of points with him, and actually in certain scoring systems were just above him by a point or two.
Wow. So
But
it wasn't
this in
Antonio
standard,
Brown. That was going to be my
That's
guess.
correct. Okay, and I will tell you, he is not playing anymore.
Oh my God.
2017.
All right,
This
so we're
was-
gonna.
I got this.
So, all right, so
Uh,
let's give it a minute to see if we have any guesses from our viewers, and then
I have a guess, and the only I'm not going to say the name, but I remember, and I think it was 2017 when he had a monster game against Miami, and I really think that I was going with somebody else until you said he's no longer in the league.
Blank.
right. I gave you a little bit of
2016 or
a.
17.
This is 2016.
No. This guy's still in the league, so it's not who I thought it was.
This is a tough
So
one.
it's not.
This is a tough
It's not Calvin Johnson because I think he had already retired.
That is no,
Okay.
I don't think so, but no.
I think the only guy who's not playing who was a monster back then in my
Oh, I know what it is. Go
I
ahead.
think I know. I mean, you want me to wait?
No, go ahead and start guessing. Well, let's let Belt Loops
Des Bryant?
guess first.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
I was
Go
going
ahead,
to say Des
Josh.
Bryant.
I feel like the one thing that might have given it away is when you said it's someone who's not in the league, and
Okay.
I think it could be Jordy Nelson.
Okay. And
Jordy
2020,
Nelson. How many? You only said 90 something receptions, right?
97
Nelson
catches for
would have had
1,257 yards. Do you have any guesses? 2020?
No, I was thinking at first Larry Fitzgerald, but he is still playing for Zona, isn't
Yeah.
he? Yeah. No, it's not
And
Fitzgerald.
wait, Kenneth guessed Andre Johnson. That is not correct. Sorry, Kenneth.
Good
And I will
guess.
give it to you. Belt Loops, very nicely done.
No, good job.
Very nice.
Okay.
What did
Jordy
he say?
Nelson. That's a tough one.
Jordy
Jordy
Nelson. It is
Nelson.
a tough one.
Okay.
That is
Wow.
that's a
Wow,
tough one.
Ruby.
I shocked myself.
Very good.
Nice job. Nice job. All right. Those young minds, I guess. All right. So, so we're going to go to 2017. Okay. This probably shouldn't be too hard, but that's what I came up with. Anyway, 2017, we're going to go running back. 323 fantasy points. Played in 15, not 16 games. So he was the number one running back in playing 15 games. which was 60 more points than the next closest running back. So he had a monster year. He had he had 1,291 rushing, 780 receiving, and 19 total touchdowns.
All right, that's what made the difference to me. Like I think I know who the top 3 running backs were that year, and I think that the big difference were touchdowns.
Yep. You probably got it. So hang on just a minute.
Yeah.
Belt Loops comes on with a smirk. He's looking like he knows.
I feel like I'm about to go 2 for 2.
All right. So why don't we start with 2020 here?
Can we also say he's no longer in the league?
No.
I mean, not officially.
I believe at the moment he's a free agent, I believe.
Right. Okay. So it is who I thought it
So
was.
I was going to go Le'Veon Bell.
3 are free agents.
I was going Lev Bell. I don't know if that's right or not, but
that would be wrong.
I'm going Todd Gurley, man, with those touchdowns.
Oh yeah,
and Bell Loops.
I was going to say Le'Veon Bell, but I guess not.
Oh, it is not Le'Veon Bell, and Howard. It is not Gore. I don't think Gore had very good years, and I think he stopped having good years a few years before.
No, Kamish got it. It's Gurley. It's Gurley.
Kenneth, it is not Peterson. Kamish, you are 100% correct. It is Todd Georgia Bulldog Gurley.
Touchdowns.
His last really good year.
TDs.
Yep. He went bananas that year.
So we got a couple more. This next one is an interesting one. Okay, I'm trying to go through some of the positions. So in 2018, tight end. Okay, there was a couple really good tight ends this year. He had 193 points. He had 103 catches for 1,336 yards.
103
he had 10 touchdowns.
Tight end.
103 touchdowns. In 2018?
2018. Now, keep in mind, there was another tight end that year that had 13 touchdowns. He was number 4 on this list. Okay? I'll give you that name. It's Eric Ebron. It's Eric Ebron. Eric Ebron had 13 touchdowns that year.
I thought there was only one wide receiver that had that many catches, and he continues to do that year over year. That's all I'm going to give as a hint, in my opinion.
Tight end, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, so this is 2018. He had 103 grabs.
Yeah, I don't think that fantasy number 1 has changed over the past few years. I think it's been the same guy.
All right, so
I think it's Travis Kelce.
Cook is not correct.
Yeah, but Kelce.
There
108 catches for a tight end. That's Kelce. Who else? What other tight end is giving you 100 catches a game? I mean, a season.
No.
Zach Ertz.
Zach Ertz and Graham, but Graham wasn't. It was already too late for Graham.
Graham wasn't doing it in 2000.
He wasn't doing it in 18. I don't know that Kelce got there. He's been there for like 2-3 years at that level. His first 2 years in, he was great, like 70, 80 catches. I don't know if he got to the 108 point by 2018, but who else could it have been?
It's either Ertz or Kelce, but if we're talking about number 1 fantasy quarterback, because if Ertz would have those catches, but I don't think he's going to get you the.
He'd go for 100. Yeah.
Okay, so I'll tell you, it was Kellen Winslow Jr. No, it was Travis Kelce.
It was Kelce, right?
Gates. It was past Gates' prime. Yeah, Gates did it year in, year out for a long time.
So that was the first year Kelce really blew up. Right, that was his year. So I can't do these timelines years back.
So I'm going to go to a little older one now, and then we'll wrap it up.
Oh,
okay. So this is 2013. This was a very tough one.
Jesus.
Wide receiver 2013. This is going to be very hard.
Who won the Super Bowl in 2013? Okay, hold on real quick.
I don't even know how old I was in 2013.
Hold on one second. Hey, Kenneth.
Hey, can I get in on this? You're my fantasy number 1?
Well, we're in the middle of this one first, and we'll get to you in a second, okay?
Yeah.
So Kenneth, you can hold on, and you can answer the question if you know it.
Yeah,
Brad, you were 2013. Can somebody tell me who won the Super Bowl in 2013? Anybody? Because that would really help. Help me understand.
Josh, look it up real quick. Belt Loops, look it up real quick. Can you do that?
Go ahead. So 2013
All right, so
running back.
let me give you the stats. Wide receiver.
Do the stats. A wide receiver.
227.4 points in this scoring system. The next in the scoring system was 227, so it was very close.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so in other scoring systems, it might have been just a tad bit different. Actually, I can change it to a PPR, and let me see if it changes. It did. It went from the 1 and 2 went different by like 4 points. Okay, so this could have been 1 or 2. I'll even give you the other guy that it could be, and then we'll see if you get this guy. Okay, he had 87 catches for 1,646 yards. So the catch total wasn't high, but the yards was fantastic. He had 88 rush yards. He had 9 touchdowns. Okay. The next closest player had a season high of 14 touchdowns. Now that player was Demaryius Thomas. Okay. But in the
So you're saying Demaryius Thomas was number 2?
Was number two
okay, or number 1, depending on the scoring system. Okay. In a PPR, he went to number 1 by a few points. So this would have been let's say number 1 or number 2.
So this is 2013, and he had
2013.
Who won the
How many
Super Bowl
catches?
that year?
Baltimore.
Baltimore won. Baltimore won the Super Bowl.
Baltimore.
Okay.
This
Okay.
was the San Francisco game.
San Francisco, Baltimore, right? Yeah.
Okay.
Baltimore to
All right, so I'm going with
the Ray Lewis retirement, right?
I'm going with Megatron.
Okay. Okay.
So tell me the numbers again. 83. How many grabs? How many yards? How many
80
touchdowns?
87 for 1646. Megatron was number 3.
Oh, wow.
87 for
Okay.
16. And how many touchdowns?
9 for 1646. Steve
And this
Smith
is eight,
must have gotten
right?
hurt that year because he is not listed here. Sorry, Howard.
Right.
AJ
Unless I
Green.
missed him. Yeah. AJ Green was number 4. Good guess.
Interesting.
This
Who
is
am I
very
missing?
hard. This is very hard. You're
Honestly,
missing. I
I-
can give you a clue.
I know.
Give me a
Before
clue.
I want to make my guess before you give me a clue.
Okay, go
My
ahead.
guess is Brandon Marshall.
Wrong.
Oh, I was going to say
Brandon Marshall
Antonio
was
Brown, but
number-
that's too obvious.
It was a good guess, but Brandon Marshall was number 5.
Wow.
Okay, so you're
How are
getting
we
these
missing
other
that?
people.
Okay, give me the clue. Is he still in the league?
No,
Yes
can't be, right?
and no.
Larry Fitzgerald.
Yes.
No.
And, okay, I got it. Yes and no. I
Yeah,
got
you got it. He got it. You got it. Okay, go ahead.
Josh Gordon.
There you go.
Oh, Josh Gordon. Got it.
I'm like, who's like in the league but not in the league?
not
And
in the
Josh Gordon
league,
just got reinstated.
He's who I was going to say as well.
Yeah.
I completely forgot
Right, 'cause he
about
just-
him. I thought that this
Right,
was
that's
Megatron.
That's
Right.
very tough.
And
It's a very tough
I would
one.
have actually had Demaryius Thomas third. I would have had Megatron, AJ Green, and Demaryius Thomas. I didn't even think about Josh Gordon. That's crazy.
So, yeah, Megatron had 221, 227, 227.4. So it was very close. But yeah, all right. So this is the last one. Very, very quick. It's going to be very easy.
The memory of an artificial plant.
This is going to be very, very easy. We're going to go kicker in 2020.
Yeah.
All right, this is who is it? You could already tell us.
Cool.
You got it. It was the number 1 kicker in 2020.
Hey Kenneth, you said you had a question for us?
Yeah. I'm going running back. All right.
Okay.
This running back, highest yards were 1631.
What year?
Little over 2016.
Okay.
This running back's yards were 1631, just over 5 yards per carry, 15 touchdowns, and he only turned the ball over once.
I got a good guess.
Do you need a hint?
And this was the number 1 running back
2016.
this year?
2016, right? Yeah.
I mean, the easiest guess, just because he did it year in, year out, is probably. I mean, Bell was right in there that year, but I would have to guess. I would have to guess Zeke, just because he was a
It was Zeke's
monster those
rookie
years.
year, wasn't it? It was
I think
his
his rookie
year.
year was
First
15.
or second year, yeah. 15,
Oh, okay.
right? So it would have been second year.
I'm gonna go Adrian Peterson.
Zeke was my guess as well.
Was Peterson in the league that year?
2016.
Maybe did he get
That's
hurt
5
that
years
year?
ago.
He had gotten hurt and then everything.
Oh, it is Zeke. All right. Good job, guys.
Oh, it is Zeke. Very good.
Okay. Yeah.
So y'all
Awesome. Thanks, Kenneth.
in regards to that
Yeah,
ideas?
yeah. Yes.
All right.
Yes, Howard basically said he has a memory of an artificial plant. Yes, pretty much, Howard, as you didn't get one right, but good guesses. We appreciate it.
No, and Howard, I love the fact that you were listening to the show and commenting all night. So we really do appreciate that. Brad, great segment. Loved it. That was good. So we've got You're My Fantasy number 1. We had wide receiver night. Guys, we could talk fantasy football for another 3 hours, but we can't. We have to go. So I really, I had a good time tonight on the show. We're going to come back next week on Tuesday night, right? 8:00 Tuesday night. And we'll talk tight ends, maybe kicker. I don't know. Well, we'll talk tight ends and
kicker gets its own show. Come on, own show.
And training camp's getting started very soon, so we're going to have some news and notes that will start every show off once we start getting a little more news coming through the NFL. And then we're going to start going mock draft heavy sometime in the summer. And we're going to start mock drafts early so that we can break down and discuss everything from schemes to positions to sleepers and overachievers and underachievers. So stay tuned.
Basically, we're sorry to interrupt, but we're 8 weeks from kickoff, right?
We are. You people better get your thinking caps on because we're coming after you with some good stuff.
Kicker obsession. Hey, as long as they're on the roster, you're going to give me 10 to 15 points a week. That's more than your tight end or your wide receiver 3 is going to get you. So you better make sure you get a good one like Young Hoku. And if you draft him, that'll be the end of our friendship. All right, guys. Great night. Loops, thank you. As always, we appreciate it. Any final words?
We will see you next week. Thanks for coming.
Word.
All right. Take care now. Bye-bye then.